So now we're going to jump into our panel discussion. For anyone who would like to ask a question, I would ask that you type it into the chat box and I will moderate the questions. I've got a couple already that we received ahead of time and we're going to put them up on the screen now. The first question is, how does growth in the upstate impact our water resources? So I'm going to first go to Erica Hollis with Upstate Forever to give her feedback.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Okay, good. So I don't think it's probably a surprise to anyone here in the upstate that we're experiencing a significant amount of growth in the region. And in fact, it's estimated that by 2040, we'll have developed another 200,000 acres just in this region alone. And what that means from a water quality perspective is that when we develop land, we convert land from a more natural surface, for example, like a forest or a field or a wetland, and we transition that into what we call an impervious surface. And that's a surface that water cannot absorb into or filter into. And so examples are like roads, homes, parking lots, just anything you see pretty much when you look outside your window, unless you live in the country. But, and so what that means is when you have rain events like the one we had last night, there's nowhere for the water to go. And it ends up washing off really fast and in higher velocities into the nearest water body. And as a result, we have issues, and we're having more and more of them, flooding, flash flooding, pollution, and major erosion issues. And that can impact our drinking water sources and recreational water sources. And it is a concern for the region.
Definitely. Toby, can you fill us in on what are some things that ReWa's doing to ensure that we have the appropriate infrastructure in place for these types of events?
Sure. Currently, of course, most people are aware in the upstate that we have the Big Dig Greenville that's going on, which is, it was initially a 10-foot or 11-foot bored tunnel that will finally, when the pipe is installed, will be a 7-foot sewer line that will connect the upper portions of the city of Greenville, down to the park. And this will allow us to take care of that growth that Erica was talking about, potentially for the next 100 years, to make sure that we're conveying. A big part of wastewater treatment is also conveying through the collection system the wastewater safely to the treatment plant so it can be treated properly. Of course, if it's not treated safely or conveyed safely, then it enters into our creeks, rivers, and streams, and it adds to the pollution. So that's one of the things that we're doing here at ReWa to help control that, to reduce the amount of SSOs that we're having, in the upstate that definitely affects our water quality. So the Big Dig is the major thing that we have going on right now.
Thanks, Toby. For those of us, we'll go into the next question. For those of us who are locals here in the upstate, many of us probably remember when the Reedy ran different colors depending on the day, which in watching this video, it probably brought back some memories. The river in India with the textile mills, it ran different colors depending on the type of dye that was used and released into the local river. So since the DHAC and EPA have come in and regulated the industries, and the Reedy no longer runs a different color depending on the day, what are the biggest pollutants in our waterways now? Sarah Whitmire, I'm going to come to you from Conestee to give us your input.
Yeah, hi everybody. So Lake Conestee Nature Preserve is in a position within the watershed where we sort of collect a lot of what's coming down river and off the land and off the watershed, and it settles in the lake. Those historic pollutants that did flow along with all those dyes for probably over 100 years are now nicely situated in the bottom of Lake Conestee, and we're trying real hard to keep it there. but we still have different worries these days. And one of the most obvious is litter. And if you follow us on Facebook or anything, you've seen pictures we've posted. And every time it rains, we get a whole new tons and tons of litter and trash that have to be cleared out and picked up. The hidden dangers come with nutrient and bacterial pollution that are washing off from roads and lawns and flowing into the river, and fertilizers, untreated waste, maybe from bad septic issues and things like that, and from pet waste, can contribute a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus into water. And if you combine that with slow movement, warm days, that can lead to algae blooms. And we haven't had major algae blooms that I'm aware of in the Upstate for a while, but it is a constant threat in Lake Greenwood and something that they've had to struggle with and are trying to combat. I think the last big one they had was in 1999. So those are the things that we worry about now. Algae blooms can lead to fish kills. They can put toxins in the water, and Lake Greenwood is a drinking water source for Lawrence and those counties down there. So that's definitely a big concern as well.
Okay. So the big question when we talk about pollution and what's impacting our local waterways is what can we do to clean it up? And in this question, I'd like to hear from all the panelists, starting with Kirsten.
Hey, welcome guys. Welcome friends. So one of the things that the community has come together to do is to form the Reedy River Water Quality Group. And that is, it is headed by 3 entities. It's Greenville County and ReWa and the city of Greenville. And I'm with Greenville County Soil and Water Conservation District, and right now I'm basically speaking, I guess, for Greenville County. But we have all worked. The three entities have worked very hard, as well as about 40 other stakeholders, to make sure that we find out what the problems are with the Reedy. We have done millions of dollars worth of monitoring. We are modeling the system, and we have a committee that comes up with best management practices. And it turns out that every single one of us has a part to play in this. There are several things that we can do to keep the Reedy clean. One of those is to make sure that you take a fertilizer test a soil test before you add fertilizer to your yard. You don't want to add too much fertilizer, because the primary pollutant in the Reedy River is nitrogen, and that comes from your fertilizers. So make sure you take a soil test and follow the advice before you fertilize your lawns. In addition, we are asking citizens to wash their cars on their yards instead of in the street or on their driveways, because all of the water that runs from the streets goes into storm drains and straight into the nearest river or lake or stream. And so the soaps from the car washes and the automotive fluids end up flowing into the streams. So we ask that you wash your car on your yard, and that way the soiled or the dirty water goes down into the soil, which actually cleans it before it goes into the groundwater to be able to recharge the nearest stream. Another thing we're asking people to do is to make sure that you add buffers, that you let the plants grow next to, if you live on a waterway, let the plants grow up 30, 50 feet away from the stream, that band that is immediately adjacent to the stream. That actually helps to clean the water. We're starting on some new outreach, which is asking people to not pour grease or oil or fats down your kitchen drain because that clogs pipes. And that doesn't seem like it would be related to pollution, but what it does is it stops up the sewer pipes. And then when it does that, the sewage ends up popping out of those manholes. And some of you may have seen that during big storm events, but that pops out of the manholes when it backs up, and then it flows over the land into the nearest stream instead of going safely to the nearest wastewater treatment plant. So never, please never put fats, oils, or grease down your drain. And then the last thing that we're asking people to do right now is to make sure that you do not flush anything that doesn't belong in the toilet. So those things are poop and pee and toilet paper. All of those flushable wipes, they are not flushable. They actually end up clogging up the system. So please, please, please do not flush what they call flushable wipes or anything else except poop and pee and toilet paper.
Absolutely. All right. So, yeah. Toby's over there. I saw him start chuckling on that note. So on that note, we'll go down the line. We'll go to Toby. And Toby, you want to tell us what we can do as community members to clean it up?
You know, I think there was a resounding theme in the movie that we watched, and I've watched it a couple times, about personal responsibility. And I think it does start with personal responsibility, you know, beginning at our homes and in our schools, and educating people the importance of putting trash in its proper place, and what's the proper etiquette when it comes to, you know, wastewater and trash and things that you throw away. But, you know, as community partners, we've worked together to make all of these things happen. And it's good that we have this dialogue, and I'm glad that I'm hearing what I'm hearing today. But, you know, some of the things that we do here at ReWa that I've been a part of and this company's done for years, we have the yearly river sweep. Of course, this took place just a couple of weeks ago, and we're just doing a small portion, you know, of the Reedy, basically from where our effluent line comes in, you know, downstream to where the brushy comes in. And I think this year we pulled the most tires, you know, the tires since we've been doing this, the largest quantity of tires out of that area that in all the years combined. And so the river sweep is something that we do. It builds camaraderie around helping keeping the Reedy clean. And then another thing that we've started here at ReWa that I'm excited about is our oyster shell program. I don't know how many people are aware of that, but we encourage local restaurants, citizens, that when they discard their oyster shells, that they turn those into us, and of course they're returned to the coast. And I really didn't know this until I started digging into this program a little bit, but a full adult oyster really filters about, I think, 50 gallons of water a day at the coast. So that's a pretty exciting thing that we're doing. And of course, we're incorporating solar here at ReWa into our treatment process, which helps with air pollution and also with water use. So again, it comes back to personal responsibility and then working together as a community to make these changes.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Toby. Erica, what do you guys have to say at Upstate Forever about what we can do to clean up the Reedy and other waterways?
Well, I want to just reiterate what Kirsten was saying with all the individual actions that people can do in their daily lives. But one thing that we focus on at Upstate Forever is working with different agencies, elected officials, business leaders across the board to advocate for regulations and ordinances that are more protective of water quality. So we do this at the local, state, and occasionally the federal level if needed. Locally, we work a lot with the partners that Kirsten mentioned earlier, the city and the counties, to look at stormwater ordinances and things of that nature and try to find ways that we can both protect the environment, but also allow for development, because we obviously recognize that development is important for the region. But we want to see it done in a way that doesn't impact our water resources and natural resources negatively. At the state level, we get involved in a variety of issues. We look at the water quality standards on a 3-year basis. I believe they get reissued, and we make sure that they're being protective. There's also a new group that we're really excited about, and it's the, I'm trying to look it up. It's the State Office of Resilience has just been formed by the governor. And that is an agency that's going to be focused on how climate change is impacting flooding in our regions. And so we will be heavily involved in that, just because we are seeing a lot more flooding in our communities, and we're trying to find ways to mitigate that and compensate homeowners for their losses, but also direct development away from those sensitive areas. And so we just, if people are interested, we love to get people to help participate, speak with your elected officials, and, you know, see what they love to hear from the average person, because if they know that you're concerned, they're more likely to support some of those issues that we're working on.
Perfect. Thanks, Erica. We have a question from one of our guests today, Andrea, and I hope I do not butcher your last name. It's Schechter, I think. She asked, as a homeowner, who would, or what would the panel recommend to save water during irrigation? So I'm going to let whoever has some feedback for her hop on. And oh, here's Kirsten. I thought it might be her.
Yay, I love this. That's a great, great question. So we have done a lot of studies with the Greenville County Soil and Water Conservation District. And what we have found is that when you are irrigating, if you, because of our compacted soils and heavy clays, if you're irrigating, irrigate for a short time, maybe 10, 20 minutes, and then turn the irrigation off and allow the water to soak in. If you continue irrigating, say you turn your water on for an hour, it will, the soil won't absorb it, and most of that water will just run off and run straight into your local stream. So, and with it, it will carry anything that's on top of the ground, whether that's dog waste or excess fertilizer or anything like that. So we want the water to infiltrate. That is absolutely the best thing to do. Another option is to have, if you have soil and water, another option is to buy a smart controller for your irrigation. The irrigation will turn off when it rains, or you can manually turn it off. But I think we've all seen when you walk out or you're driving along and you see lots of people who have their irrigation going as it's raining, and that just doesn't make sense. But there are smart controllers that can tell when it's raining and actually turn your irrigation water off. So thanks for that question. That's a really good one.
All right. Thank you, Kirsten. That was a good question. A lot of people ask that. One other question that we have, and it looks like we're going to be ending on time today unless we have some more that pop up. Here in the Upstate, we have a wonderful source of clean, fresh drinking water. We're very lucky here. So why should people be concerned, and why should they be thinking about it now as opposed to when we do have a water crisis?
Which one of us is taking it? Team effort.
Well, I mean, I would say the low-hanging fruit there for me, being in operations and maintenance, is, you know, reducing the amount of water that we use It protects the environment by cutting down on the amount of energy that we use, to treat and pump water. So that's the first thing I see.
Mhm.
That's,
Well,
yeah.
I would just like to add that we are very fortunate here in Greenville because the majority of us get our drinking water from the Table Rock Reservoir and the North Saluda, and those are entirely protected by forested regions. And so anyone downstream of us, they're getting their drinking water from the streams that flow through the county. And so, it's our responsibility to, as good neighbors and good stewards, to take care of that water, because it does end up being someone else's drinking water, like Lake Greenwood that was mentioned earlier. And also, we are seeing the last few years we've had, a good bit of precipitation, but I remember, just 10 years ago, we were in a phase of drought. So, we have to be prepared for both situations, because based on this year, you never know what's going to happen. And so you need to be able to roll with it and have good strategies for both too much water and too little. And I would welcome anyone else to add to that. Sarah?
I think you did a good job.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. I think it's about being a good neighbor and taking care of who's downstream, and realizing that we might not be so lucky in the next 10 years if we do have another drought. And we want to take care of the people downstream and show them good faith in the event that there is a drought and there are issues. Georgia and Florida are continually arguing over water and what's coming downstream from Georgia into Florida, and that's creating issues. And we're not feeding into another state, but we are feeding into our neighbors in the low country. So in order to make sure that they're plentiful and that those environments that we love, those marshes and those oysters and all of that, are continually fed and have high quality water, not polluted water, is to everybody's benefit.
Great answer. I think, we just passed in October the Imagine a Day Without Water 2020. And I think it's important that we all keep that at the top of our minds and remember and value the water that we have and protect it. So one last thing, and I think we'll be ending maybe a few minutes early. If our attendees would like to go out to the Renewable Water Resources Facebook page, or we're going to share this on the Reedy River Water Quality Group's Facebook page, we want to know, what was your main takeaway? There's a post out there already on the ReWa Facebook page, but what was your main takeaway from the film today? If you comment below, we're going to enter to win a Water Warrior prize pack. So go out there, comment what was your most impactful thing that you took from today's film, and share it with others. Encourage others to watch this film. I think the information is critical for everyone to know. I know that I'm going to be sharing this film with my children as well, because they're the future of protecting our resources. So does anyone else have anything to say before we end this? No? Okay. Well, thank you so much, panelists. We appreciate Kirsten, Toby, Erica, Sarah, everybody taking your time today to participate. We also want to thank all of our attendees, and go share the message. Thank you so much. Have a great day.